Hello, everyone, and welcome to our March Inclusion and Wellbeing Forum. It's interesting times here in the UAE at the moment, but inshallah, everybody is safe and secure, and you're all very welcome to our session today. And hopefully, it will be a little distraction from what's going on outside. Um, we welcome everyone to the forum. As always, we would request that mics be muted so that the speaker can be heard. If you have any questions throughout, you can either write them in the chat and I'll present them, or you can put your hand up and we'll call on you. Let us please keep focused on students and practice. We don't discuss individual cases, but if you would like to ask any questions about some students you have, please refrain from using their school name or the child's name. Industry experts are welcome to listen and advise, but please do not promote any offerings, any services, free or paid, as this is totally free forum. As always, we'll record the session and we will post it on our YouTube channel, where you can find all of the recordings over the past 5 years. It's a huge body of resources, guys. Please do check it out. I've popped the link to all of our social media, including the YouTube channels, in the chat, so you can check it out there. We ask you to remember that we are all in the same boat as you. While we would offer advice and guidance, we always advise that you revert to your school or your organization's leadership team before you change any practice or implement anything, always ensuring that you are following regulatory and your personal organization's guidelines. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Paula, who is an occupational therapist with ABLE UK. She is going to speak to us today all around supporting children with individual needs, particularly focusing on really practical tools and strategies that you can use in your setting literally tomorrow. So let me close the presentation and hand over to Paula.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope everyone is safe and doing well from our own home, and some of them are actually with their friends. I hope I would be able to see familiar faces today, and everybody will be familiar with each and every one, therefore, moving forward. Now, I will be presenting about the sensory needs in learning. These are practical insights for educators. This is specially created for teachers, SENCOs, HLOs, LSAs, and even for other members of the allied health profession who would be interested to know more about sensory integration, about occupational therapy, and how we can empower our stakeholders within the school and classroom setting. Let's start. So just an overview, I do have a Bachelor's of Science in Occupational Therapy from the University of the Philippines, Manila, and currently completing my Master's in Applied Neuroscience from King's College London in UK, and I'm also fully certified in sensory integration by the University of Southern California. Here are also some of the tools of our practice that I am certified in, at the same time are helpful in supporting each and every member of our community. Now, what is occupational therapy to begin with? Occupational therapy is not necessarily overtime. As a joke that I always tell my friends, OT is a profession, and as stated by World Federation of Occupational Therapists, it's defined as a client-centered health profession concerned with promoting health and well-being through occupation. And we define occupation as activities that are important for individuals. And for us right now in this setting, basically in pediatrics and adolescents, obviously, from all the other areas of occupation that our clients or our students are engaged in, most probably we'll be working on education, social participation, activities of daily living, leisure, play, and then at the same time, how we put value and meaning to this for children who do not have their own voice yet with their families. And at the same time, us being the members of the multidisciplinary team for these children, we will also be the voice for them. Now, let's jump right into the different sensory systems. Why do I always show this illustration to you guys, to teachers, to parents? I always want us to think that everything that we are observing with our children, with our students, things are happening in the body and at the same time in the brain. This illustration shows us that sensory integration, or how we work on the different sensory systems, primarily tap what's happening on the brain. The brain is the one that is receiving, processing, and at the same time reacting to the different input that we get from our environments and from our own body as well. Thus, there are these chunks of body parts that are showing as illustration in here, which we will tap in the next slides to follow. Meanwhile, here is an illustration of the pyramid of learning. And I believe a lot of us would then be appreciating the illustration here, because at the top of the learning pyramid, you would see here that it shows academic learning, daily living activities, and behavior that are more relevant to cognitive and intellect of children. And us, I believe most of the participants that we have here in this afternoon, we are concerned on how our students will be maximizing their potentials as they're participating in the classroom and at school. For others who are also homeschooled, by the way, these are also practical tips that we will be able to gather for today. Now, looking at this illustration, you'd see that at the top of the pyramid, we have the academic learning. Yes, we're being able to see what a child is lacking or having issues with, and at the same time, which areas are very difficult for them when it comes to academics. We definitely have the lesson plans and the curriculum to work on that and to measure that as well. But you will see at the bottom of the pyramid, these are the different sensory systems that we also have to look at. Now, when we say sensory, this is something that has two sides of the coin, I would say. A lot of therapists, a lot of practitioners are singing about sensory. Sensory is not just messy play. I think this is something that is quite overlooked at this point, that when you say, oh, let's do sensory activities, the first thing that comes in mind, oh, we will do some messy play with children. Yes, it's part of a sensory system, which is the sense of touch. It's part of the sensory input that we are providing to children. However, that does not work on all of the kids, and at the same time, it does not encompass all of the different sensory systems. We do have the sense of movement, which is vestibular. We do have body awareness, which is proprioception. And amongst these are then the foundation on how we work on higher goals and higher skills for children that are required. For the classroom, we need them to be able to plan how to move their bodies, how to move their hands, how to move their mouth, for writing and for speaking. And at the same time, they would be able to sit down and control their posture when they are participating in lectures and tabletop activities. Body scheme is also very important, even if they are socializing with their peers during recess time or during circle time. It's quite common that you will have students observe that they are bumping into other children, or it's as if they are not aware where their body parts are. They kind of hit other children and teacher while they are walking. Meanwhile, as we go higher in the pyramid of learning, you would see here the ones that are more refined, such as coordination of eye and hand movement. It's also called visual motor skills, or handwriting, or tabletop or pen and paper activities. There's also ocular motor control. And here it's very important to identify that this is a foundation for reading, because reading, yes, it's a cognitive skill, but at the same time, it also uses the eyes. Irrelevant of the acuity, it's how the eyes are moving. And then at the same time, the most favorite thing that the teachers and LSAs are talking about to me, the attention of the students and how long, or the duration of the reading span. Now, let's go to the different sensory systems. I'll give you an overview of what they are. It's very important for us to know the terminology, but let's not get stuck with that, because we will not use these terminologies on an everyday basis, but rather the importance of them, and at the same time, the practical tips that we will be using. Knowing what you are working on, knowing what you have to see and observe, you will be able to come up with the strategies and techniques yourselves eventually. So here, vestibular, it's just a Greek Latin terminology for the sense of movement. The vestibular name came from the word vestibule. This is then part of our inner ear. It's giving you the idea if you are moving backward or forward, if you are going up and down, if you are spinning, or if you are not moving. That's why you would notice when you go on an elevator and you will reach, let's say, the 50th floor, you would feel something is pushing your ear, it's as if there's air that's coming in. It's actually your vestibular sense telling you that you're actually going up higher. Or sometimes, even if you're closing your eyes, you're on the road, you could still feel the movement. It's the vestibular sense telling you that, hey, this is quite a zigzag line. It's quite a different one that we are passing by. Now, with the sense of movement or the vestibular sense, it's actually not just about children who are quite roughhousing or who are always moving around. Think of the sense of movement as both increased activity level or children or students who are always on the go. But at the same time, I think some will resonate with this, that this could also be relevant to low attention in the classroom. Yes, they are not walking around, they are not acting up as supervisor, but they are not paying attention. It seems that they are just wandering. And when you are doing the lecture, they would be looking around everywhere. So it's as if they're trying to make their body or their brain very busy. Now, when it comes to the movement sense, apart from them being always on the go or very excited for movement, this is also impacting on their ability to coordinate both the left and the right sides of the body, as well as the upper and the lower sides of the body. So think of activities, let's say in PE, jumping jacks, when you're doing hopping activities with them, or the very basic climbing up the stairs or jumping. Some of our children that we are supporting in the classroom, this is quite challenging already for them. More so when you do tasks that are then higher, such as like the picture in here, the boy is asked to touch the opposite knee using the hand. So it is now left and right to left movement. It's also reflective of the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, because when we are talking about the movements in the body, it's also giving back instructions to what's happening in our brain. So when we do activities like this, elbow to knee touches, hand to toe touches, or when we are doing things with both hands together, remember you're also working on both the hemispheres of the brain. And how are they important? They will help the child in terms of reading as well. See, you're just working on touching the opposite knee or making a child stand on one leg, but it will impact on reading because we have two eyes. We also have the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And when you're reading, you should be able to cross the midline of your body, so you'll be able to read from left to right, up and down. Now, it's also relevant for speech, as it is required for talking as well. If there are speech therapists in the audience right now, you would know that there are children who are having challenges to cross their tongue around their mouth, because this is also relevant to their midline crossing skills and their coordination. Meanwhile, here you would see there's this picture of an older boy on the upper right side, whereby he's kind of slouching or lumping on a chair. It's also affecting sitting posture. Now, why are we always thinking about sitting posture or an upright posture of the body in general? And this is an idea that I want to tell a lot of you. Imagine yourself when you are actually leaning on the table or on a wall, or it's as if you are side lying while you are reading. What's happening? Your body, through your spine, is sending signal to your brain that you are ready for what? For sleep, for hibernation. So even if a child is actually sitting on a chair in the classroom, but you felt that that there's nothing going on the child's mind or brain that is based on what you're talking about, it could also be relevant to their sitting posture. There are also some children who might find it very difficult or tedious for them to do some handwriting activities because they use a lot of muscles for them to be able to keep an upright posture. It's quite tiring for them. They have very low endurance. Thus, a very simple activity could be challenging for them. Here, this is the sense of body awareness. Think of proprioception. So Latin proprio, it means self. So think about your body map through your joints, your muscles, your tendons. So the easiest way to think about that, if it's about the joints, push and pull. So what are the activities that are about push and pull? So pushing wall, pushing weighted objects in the classroom, helping the teacher to sort the tables, the chairs, carrying books to be distributed to their classmates. And then at the same time, it's also going to be beneficial for them to do some exercises or what we call heavy work activities. So that is where proprioception is taking in place. Proprioception is also responsible for when a child is having a hard time to hold the pencil, during writing, or not just pencil, crayon, marker, or any writing tool or equipment, even when they are utilizing scissors for cutting activities, because proprioception is also helping the child gauge the pressure. Sometimes you would see children whereby they would be writing with very light stroke, or they would actually be pressing a lot of pressure onto the paper while they're writing, as if they're poking the paper already. So this is also the system that's responsible for that. It's also about grading of force. So seemingly, there are children in the playground or during break time, you would see them as if they're pushing other kids, or they're having a hard time to queue in line during play, or when they're going back to their classroom. So it's having the idea of where your body parts are and maximizing the capability of your body parts in use. So some of the activities that would be helpful for them here, there's an illustration of group of boys. We are doing some scooter board activities, but there's a lot of input that is required for their thighs, for their feet, for the movement of their trunk as well. Here is an example of wall push-ups, whereby the child is standing. It's as if the child will be pushing itself or the wall. So there's a lot of strength that is required of the shoulders, the muscles of the arm, and at the same time the back as well, especially with the hand and the fingers. A very simple modification that is quite easier for us to implement is what you see on your right side. This boy, I just asked him to wear his backpack. There's actually a two-in-one trolley or a backpack. So I opted for it to be used as backpack. And at the same time, I'm also giving him some wrist cuffs. You would see it on his wrists. Just some input that will make him be more aware of his body. And then at the same time, it's as if, imagine yourself when you're tired, you don't have much energy to move anymore, right? So in layman terminology or thinking, it's as if we're making these children tired so that they'll be able to sit down and focus on the activities. Here are some of what we can utilize for older children. You would see here, it's a very easy, familiar hopscotch activity. You can do this as long as you have a tape on the floor, if you have a chalk on the playground in the school. This one, you would see that there's a lot of strength that is required of this boy because he's asked to lie on his stomach, lie on your tummy. You see how he needed to lift all of his body parts and lean or bear weight on just the abdominal area or core. This is what we call core strengthening as well.
So, we got another question. How do we support a child who is seeking movement without overstimulating them? Given that we do not have an occupational therapist or we did not receive any home plan, my suggestion is to bank on proprioceptive-based activities. Here we go. Use blanket, pillow, stuffed toys for makeshift crash pad. We can also utilize animal poses, animal walks, which would then provide traction and compression onto their joints for heavy work proprioceptive input. We can also use stairs at home to transfer toys or objects from one flight of the stairs to the other. As they say, there's no such thing as too much proprioception.
That's just a fun video that I created. Like a lot of homes and class, schools will obviously have stairs, so we can also use them for play. That is very simple. Just do activities climbing up and down the stairs. And imagine yourself doing all of these things. It makes you be more aware of your body parts, right? So it's the same thing with these kids. We just have to increase the intensity and at the same time the frequency on how we are doing them. For some children, it may be required to be done first thing in the morning. For some kids, whereby we are scheduling their routines, it could be placed before or after a very difficult subject so that they will have that capacity to regulate themselves. Now, interoception. Interoception in the sensory integration world, this is one of the new terminologies that are popping up. Some of us are very familiar with this. Interoception, or in, it just means inside the body. So if we talked about the proprioception earlier, or thinking about the muscles, the joints, they're outside, here it's about the internal organs. You may have students who are always hungry. They always go to their bags, to their lunch bag, asking to eat, asking to have snacks all the time. It's as if he never gets full. There are also children who are having a hard time when it comes to bowel and bladder management, or having a hard time for toileting, in short. So this is the sensory system that is responsible for that. Now, apart from the focusing on interoception, the things that we did with proprioception can also be working on this, just with a lot more of focus on the core muscles or the areas on the abdominal side. For some children, we're using the Z vibe as well, or vibration. I'll show you some of the videos later on that you can also utilize on their spine. And at the same time, a TheraPressure brush that is very famous in therapy that you can apply on their body, on their arms, their legs, their back. And at the same time, specifically on the lower back, I do a tutorial on that for the LSAs that I am working on, just so we will wake up those areas that are then responsible for bowel and bladder management. Obviously, this is different for when we are working on toileting that is then correlated to schedule or the child's ability to sit on the toilet itself. We have a different recommendation for that that is very specific for toileting, such as use maybe of a stool for the child to step on so that there's a proper posture of the child on the toilet, or having some armrest for children who have concerns when it comes to balance, things like that. Now here, sense of touch. I think this is one of the favorite senses, as I was talking about earlier, about sensory input or sensory play. So a common knowledge that everyone has, or majority of people have, would then be, when we say sensory play, it means we'll do messy play. But apart from that, I just want us to emphasize that our entire body is covered with skin. It's giving you the idea of what is comfortable, what is also noxious or painful, what could be comfortable for you, maybe painful for others, or your pain threshold could be higher as compared to some. Imagine those friends of ours who are having a hard time for dental appointments. I know a therapist, we did the vaccination. She was screaming on the top of her lungs while everybody was on queue getting ourselves vaccinated in the clinic. So imagine yourselves being in that situation, that yes, even in adults, these things may even happen. These things may even be persisting. Maybe the only difference is that they're being able to grow up while compensating or overcoming these things. Meanwhile, the other children need support, need us for them to be able to maximize their potentials. Now, when it comes to the sense of touch, think of the skin. So the ears are also covered with skin. Our mouth is also covered with skin. Obviously, the hand is covered with skin. And even our internal organs, even the lining of our throat and stomach, it's also about skin. That's why it's very interesting. It's corn flour with water. And here I added a few of shapes, colors, and at the same time numbers, so that you'll be able to work on academic skills while we are also working on the sense of touch. The child is still sensitive at this point, but this is a great way to introduce both of them. And here we did some drawing activities with food color, that is ice cubes. We did some drawing, we did some writing. We utilized Q-tip or cotton buds just to help with the grasp as well. Here are these boys. Therapy is similar to Play-Doh. However, why it's one of my favorite tools is because it doesn't dry up. I think it's not made of water, and it has different levels as well and consistency. I will show you later on with the recommendations towards the end.
Okay.
Here, it's iodized it's not iodized grocery. I also like also like weighted spoon for children who are having a hard time to use a regular size spoon. Once again, some students or some children, they have less awareness of their body. That's why when they eat, it's as if it's very messy, or when they are drawing, they're applying very light stroke in the paper using their pencil or crayon. Here, moving to the other side. And then in we utilized ice cubes as we are working on alphabet.
Wait, what letter is this?
Here, I think my voice is very loud there. Okay, here.
Very good. Oh, you try. Awesome.
So it's more of a stereognosis and graphesthesia at this point. So graphesthesia is when there is something on your hand or on your back, you are not using your eyes. So it's on your skin, either drawing of shapes or letters, just like what I did with the boy. I did the letter I on his back, and he has to have that mental image in his brain. Then he was able to translate it on the board. I utilized shaving foam in here just so it's gonna be more interactive. I'm working on the sense of touch as well. Here, this is a nice strategy for children in terms of those who are still having a hard time to manage sticky types of consistencies and textures. She's a, she's a teenager already, so the music that I'm also playing in the background is quite age appropriate for her. So this is just glitter glue, and I also used soap just so we will have that visual input as well.
So amazing.
Okay, oh, touch.
So amazing.
Okay, oh, touch. Wait, what letter is this? Very good. Oh, you try. Awesome.
She was drawing on the kinetic sand. This is actually the same girl who was aversive to touch different textures in the beginning, and then eventually we were able to work on her ability to utilize different types of textures that are more manageable for her.
So amazing. Wow. Amazing, Elon. Great job. Amazing. Whoa, strong. Amazing. Let's walk, walk, walk. Walking. Amazing. Wow, Zoe. Woohoo.
So that is just a sensory path that you can also create with grocery store items. Hi, Miss Ramya, I saw you clapping. With grocery store items, so that's shaving foam, pasta, chickpeas, and at the same time, salt sand. I call it salt sand, but it's just iodized salt, though. Now, auditory processing. Auditory processing is not about the child's ability to hear, okay? We just have to be able to make sure, as therapists, we usually ask parents, had the child received or have undergone any audiology test? Because we have to make sure that a child can actually hear. Then what we do test for them to be able to, for us to be able to check if they can localize the sound, what kind of sounds they can hear, and at the same time, if there are specific frequencies of sounds that they are aversive to. Now, a very basic activity that we do is we play different types of music. You would see here that I'm using headphones, but this is not noise canceling. I'm actually playing music with this lovely girl, and it really depends on what your child can tolerate. There are children who are still within a very high alert mode when she's listening to sound. So sometimes we are just still using white noise. I am a big fan of white noise for children who are aversive to sounds or noisy environment, because there are researches that show whereby when a child is still in the womb, it's actually white noise that they are hearing. So it's very similar to that. And we want the child to be able to have the sense of comfort that, okay, this is the same feeling as when I am in the womb of my mom. And then at the same time, moving forward, we then use different frequency, because when you just use headphones that is noise canceling, think of it as Band-Aid. Once again, there are things that we can still work on, but I understand that there are times, let's say we are in social situations, we are in a mall, we are in a church, we cannot tell the priest or the choir not to be noisy, right? Or even in the classroom setting, we cannot tell them that, oh, teacher, please don't talk too loud, or for us to be able to control all of the classmates. So sometimes we use noise canceling headphones, but at the same time, when we can, we also try to play calming classical music or nature sounds, just so we would be able to improve the ability of the child to tolerate that type of auditory input or sound. Now, there are certain situations whereby it's not just about sound. There are already traumatic incidences. For example, a child at school will be afraid of the alarm. or the school bell, or at the same time, the hand dryer in the toilet. So there are specific sounds that could be triggering such responses, or there are certain frequencies that are very difficult for them to tolerate. What happened was that they were forced to do so, or all of a sudden, it was shown to them when they are not prepared, it already created a traumatic experience for them. So while we are working on desensitization, we are also working on the child's ability to process these things. So once again, there are times whereby we have to use headphones because it's needed at that very moment. We don't want our child to be dysregulated. There are times whereby we're doing desensitization to specific input or to specific sounds. Meanwhile, we also work on the program itself on how we will be improving their ability to adapt to different sounds in their environment at different frequency, tempo, and pitch as well.
Here are some low-cost sensory strategies that we can do.
In terms of tactile play, we can utilize dried pasta. Here are some rice grains that we just colored with food coloring. These are uncooked chickpeas, as well as kidney beans. And another one that we can try, this is actually just iodized salt that is mixed with baking soda, as if you already have kinetic sand.
There are also different types of massages that you can do with your child. One is what we call wringing, as if you're wringing clothes. Just provide deep pressure that is low and uniform on the child's skin. You may use lotion that your child likes. And the other one is what we call milking massage, as if you're milking a cow. But my tip is to use the center of your hand or your palm instead of your fingers, so that you will be able to provide deep pressure input to the child instead. You may also want to consider the tone of your voice when you're speaking, or sing some lullabies. This will actually be best before the child goes to sleep at night. Depending on your child's preference, you can also use nature sounds or the classic white noise. You can also bank on happy yet calming classical music through a speakerphone or using headphones. In terms of movement functions or vestibular input, you can also grab a blanket, place a child inside, and at the same time start with slow rocking side to side as if you are swinging a child through a hammock. Simple games such as Ring Around the Rosie will also be nice in providing rotary or angular input for the child. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. You can also roll your child like a shawarma or a burrito using a blanket. And as a cherry on top, you can then provide deep pressure massage on the bigger muscles and bigger joints at the end. We can also provide joint compressions not only on the limbs, but at the same time on the skull, gently, as we are trying to compress. And at the same time on the shoulder, so you'll be able to compress the spine. Just remember, always provide proprioceptive input that is heavy work, deep pressure massage, or joint traction and compression after you give tactile-based activities. Once again, textures or anything that you do with the skin, as well as vestibular input or movement-based activities.
There. For those people who know me personally, it was quite difficult for me to create videos like this because I'm not used to seeing myself in front of the camera or in front of the screen. Anyhow, these are some of the suggestions that I thought of would be very helpful for those, yeah, Ate Shai, that's true. For those LSAs who have the opportunities to utilize a sensory room. So a lot of schools are now providing sensory rooms for their inclusion programs as well. And these are the things that we can utilize. I visited a few schools. Some of them have the vestibular ball or the large therapy ball. Some of them as well, they do have some ball pit. This one, what I wanted to show you is your capability to create something, even if it's not that available. We can just bring blanket. We can just bring, pillows that are readily accessible for us. And then at the same time, games that we are playing. And the ones that I showed here were actually the ones that I'm recommending as well. I'm working with LSAs too. And these are the things that we are doing with her student. With one LSA, the spinning, instead of ring around the rosy, the child is calling it tornado. It's also an easier way for the child to communicate it instead of us getting confused, because the child has problems with sounding the letter S. So sometimes he meant swing by ing, but also sometimes he says in, which means spin. So we came up with the word tornado. And whenever a child requests for that during, let's say, break time or during their PE time, the LSA is being able to provide. So the same massage that I showed here, the LSA was also utilizing it after swimming time, because swimming, a child receives a lot of tactile input through the skin, right? Some children are loving it. It's very comforting for them. Meanwhile, other kids who are still not so used to splashing water or having a hard time with bath time, providing them with massage afterwards is also very relaxing for them. And I heard from her last feedback to me, even if it was a very challenging class afterwards, which is Arabic, the child does not prefer, the child was able to pay attention throughout because he received a lot of massage prior. So these are the things that, when we say there's no harm in trying, these are those ones. Now, we go to handwriting. And I understand when I was told about this forum, it was a lot on practical tips to be used in the classroom. And the concept was about sensory or sensory integration. However, I included the concept of handwriting because this is the most common question or support that I am getting from or questions that I'm getting from teachers, from LSAs, and these are the common struggles that children are presenting at school, particularly the ones who are still in the FS level. So handwriting, we have to bear a few things in mind. Gross motor skills affect fine motor skills. So before you go into handwriting, make sure that your child is being able to work on the bigger muscles of the body. Going back, for those who were not able to watch us since the beginning, go back to the first few slides whereby we discussed about the ability of the child to coordinate the movements of the body. And then at the same time, my recommendations earlier regarding the animal walks, a lot of crawling activities, wall push-ups that will integrate the ability of the child to understand their body parts, them being more aware of where their body is. And then at the same time, the role of praxis. Now, this is a terminology that I'm so happy it's becoming more common now. Praxis is the ability to use your ideas or your thinking process effectively into function. So for example, you have a concept that you have in mind, you want to do something, but you're not being able to implement that. Praxis is that part. Or doing things that are not familiar to you. You would see that there are children, soon as they get a pen, they start writing ABCD, because they are so used and so rehearsed to writing the alphabet. Meanwhile, when you ask them to copy shapes that are new and more complex, they're having a hard time to do so. Then they go back to writing letter A. For the speech therapist in the audience, there are children when you ask them questions and they're having a hard time to answer that particular question because it's not what they rehearsed. They would either say their name, say their age, or recite the alphabet as well. So they go back to what is something that is very familiar for them. And then here is also developmental sequence. So remember, in handwriting, before we start with more complex letters such as the small letters or numbers, let us look at the shapes first. So for a child who's 1 to 1.5, vertical line, 2 to 2.5, I call it horizontal line or sleeping line. So standing line, sleeping line, circle, and then at the same time for a child at the age of 4 to be able to draw an intersecting line or cross. And here, as the child grows older, square, diagonal line, X, and triangle. You'll see here that apparently the diagonal lines are actually towards the end of the sequence that we are talking about. So when we think of handwriting or them writing letters, let us also consider that the developmental teaching order will also be something like this. So in therapy, when we are working on handwriting, we don't start with A to Z right away, or we don't start with the child's name. Imagine yourselves or myself. So my name is Paula. So Paula. Imagine the struggle that I had when I was starting to write. That I had to learn letter P first, and then small letter A, letter U, L, and then letter A. And then my complete name is Paula Anne Marie Gumban Balderosa. So I have 5 names. I could see Dr. Catherine laughing from the other side. And I started writing.
Gosh, and what about 30 letters for your name?
Yes. And I remember those times whereby I felt handwriting was a punishment because I had to write my name again and again and again. Although my mom knew that I was enjoying drawing, she thought I was also enjoying handwriting. Meanwhile, if you go here in a developmental teaching order, you would see that there are actually easier ways on how to teach letter formation to children. We start first with the vertical and horizontal group, magic C group, big and little curves, and at the same time diagonals. The vertical and horizontal would then obviously have vertical and horizontal. So letter L, F, E, H, and then magic C would then have the ones with curve. And then at the same time, the big and little curves would then have D, P, B. Oh, someone in the audience was asking if I can show the small letters. Okay.
So
Yeah,
we've got a lot of people who have very long names.
that is true. I do have the groupings for the small letters, but I think I did not include it here to save time. Yeah, I did not. But
Maybe
if
share it in the forum email, if you have I could put it into the forum email that we'll be sending out tomorrow or the day after.
that would be great. I'll send you the developmental teaching order for capital letters, small letters, and then at the same time, some formation on how we can verbalize the lines as well. So for example, letter A could then be big line, little line, something like that.
Thank you.
So follow me on Instagram. Send me a message, drop a DM, and then I'll send you the copy. Anyhow, this one, it's just a very nice illustration of X-ray of the child's hand. You would see at the age of 2, they're still tiny and cute with more fats as compared to the joints. And then it becomes mature as a child grows older. So the purpose of this is just for us to have the idea that sometimes we're asking children too much, whereby their physiological capacities are not yet that matured. So at the age of 2, some children are already asked to write, just like myself. For those who know me, my grasp is actually very bad. That when I'm not aware, I wrap my thumb above my index finger and my middle finger, just so I'd be able to hold the pen more securely. Otherwise, I felt that I'm giving a lot of hard time when I'm writing. But when I became an OT, I became more aware about it. So I started writing with tripod or quadruped grasp. And then here, a lot of activities that would entail strengthening of the fingers. Once again, this is my favorite therapy. Here, I just ask the child to do things out of their own creative minds. So here, also with, they call it pipe cleaners. This ones, it's like a stick or a wire that can be created. This boy, at this point, he liked to create a spider. Here, a lot of tactile play. As a group with children, they start to form letters, numbers, or even just play, giving more awareness of what their hands can do. As we speak of the tactile sense or the sense of touch, once again, imagine yourself with gloves. And while wearing the garden gloves, I'll then ask you to do fine activities. Let's say buttoning your shirt or pulling your zipper or doing some writing, cutting activities, or picking up small pieces of things on the table. It's going to be very difficult, right? Because it's as if our hands were covered. Well, obviously it was covered, but with children who are having issues with the sense of touch, it's as if their hands are covered. And at the same time, their brain does not fully perceive or interpret what their hands are doing. So we want to make them feel comfortable first, and we want to wake them up for us to be able to optimize their functions. And then in here. So this, once again, my favorite illustration of a girl who's doing drawing with a kinetic sand. Here, we're using, I think this is just cotton or tissue. It's a wet, dry, try technique. Okay, watch it. So we also utilize chalk, which is very small, little tools for little hands. And then at the same time, you can use sponge, tissue, cotton to be able to do this type of activity. We also used a smaller piece of slate. So this is just a chalkboard, but very small, since we were also working on not only on letter formation, but at the same time, sizing as well. So this is a child who was having a hard time to draw letters and numbers at this point. So this is one activity for them to be able to do so.
Yay! Let's cheese. Want its picture? Say cheese.
So here,
Yay! Let's
and here, this is the Handwriting Without Tears program. We are utilizing alphabet maps, wooden pieces. So that's the big line, little line, little line. It's as if they're doing form board activity. Now there is this imitation to form the big line, little line in making letter I. Then I used this roll-a-dough cards together with a magnetic slate. So this wood has magnets. And you see how it requires sequencing from the child's part as well. It's as if we created a path. We also utilized a small tool. So it will be automatic for the child to utilize a tripod grasp. There you go. And on the left, you would see here, I used the Play-Doh or Therapati in just having the child learn to understand first how to form and to position in terms of direction. Similarly, here, there's the roll-a-dough material. Any dough would do. Any alphabet or cards will do as well. You can also do it rudimentarily. You can just draw a letter on a paper or cardboard and have the child make a big worm, a very long worm, and then assume the formation of the letters. Similarly, in strengthening the skills of the child in terms of strength, as I say, little tools for little hands. I got this from Daiso for 7 dirhams, a set of 4 colors already. But at the same time, the easiest way to do so is to just break the crayon, make it very small. You would see here the child will be able to use tripod grasp right away. Meanwhile, here, we are just beginning to teach the child on how to do coloring. I understand coloring may be coming from different school of thought. One would then be the child should be able to color within a space or a figure without deviation. There's also another school of thought whereby a child can color the entire page, and if there are spaces, the child can draw. Meanwhile, here, what we just wanted for the child to learn is to know that there are spaces where he can write, where he can draw, and coloring was our basis or our foundation in doing so. Once again, it's very practical that I used a folder to make it a little inclined. This child has Down syndrome. I just made the slate a little inclined so the child doesn't have to lean forward a lot onto the table. And at the same time, this child also has cortical visual impairment. What do we mean by that? So yes, he can see. However, it's quite difficult for him to discriminate the different things that he is seeing in his visual field. I think that's a basic way on how to say that. That sometimes he may not be looking at the items because it's as if it's blurry on the outside of his eyes, or he's just looking on one segment using contrasting colors. So for here, I just used a duct tape that is color black for him to be able to see that instead of using a very faint line when we are working on coloring. Eventually, you can move forward and higher with different types of shapes as well, and you can reduce the thickness of the tape that you will use. Using a tape will also help provide a child with awareness that, oops, I'm going outside already, because it's a different feeling already. So here I use
Very good.
just to create like an adaptation for the pen. So it's just a clay or putty. I also tried to utilize rubber bands. I make a chunk of rubber bands in here just so we can adapt the pencil. There are pencils or pens, especially for adults. There's a lot of provision for different types of ball pen, right? But not different types of pencil. That is actually something that I noticed as well. So here for children who are having a hard time to grasp thin pencils, you can also modify them in making them thicker. Sometimes I would use a duct tape or scotch tape or paper tape to make it thicker as well, or use if jumbo pencil is not available, or a smaller pencil, and then at the same time I'll break it and then I sharpen it so that automatically the child will use a tripod grasp. Meanwhile here, in terms of sizing, so the child is already able to form the letters, just to help the child. Miss Paula, my child is writing on the entire page, or my child is writing on all over the place. So we can help them to work on their sizing. Apart from adapting the material itself, use boxes like this one. Once again, while we are working on the stability of the shoulder and at the same time, the dynamic pattern on using their hand. But I know that we don't want it to be left behind. Meanwhile, the child can already perform writing itself.
F. Wow, very good. O. X.
Wow, it's just a plastic folder that I utilized with a whiteboard. So you don't necessarily have to purchase a whiteboard. You can use this school supply, you know. And here I also adjusted the sizing of the boxes, whereby for letters that are tall, so the reference that I will be providing for small letters will also include that. There are letters that are tall. So for example, lowercase letters such as letter T, letter F, letter L, letter H, letter B, letter D. These are categorized as tall letters, so they are higher. Meanwhile, there are small letters, letter O, letter X, letter C, letter A, the ones that are just small, and the other ones that are descending. So letter G, letter Y, letter P, letter Q as well, the ones that would then go down. Here on the left side, I cut the paper. So I divided the paper into 4 pieces just so the child would be able to write smaller. Meanwhile, here, it's similar to the wet, dry, try technique. However, here I used a sponge and the child was standing. And that's how we were able to introduce formation of the letters on the board. Sitting modifications are also something that we can consider. Here, I always double check with and get permission from the school first. At the same time, I work closely with the Senko through IEP meetings or school visits if these are available or if these are allowed. Obviously, we cannot just come in there bringing all of these things, right? But having these ideas, sometimes, you know, there are pull-outs. Sometimes there are classes whereby the child is excused to attend. We can use this on a different room that is provisioned for us or at the backside of the room. Here on a therapy ball, it can be the replacement for a chair if a child needs to, you know, move while doing tabletop activities. This one is a TheraBand. It's just a very thick rubber. Sometimes we're also using it on the legs of the chair that a child can use for them to be able to fidget with their legs while they are listening to the lecture in the classroom. And the other ones that are more provisionary, I would say, that would require permission here. An example of an activity by as a child is a bouncing ball. So you would see in the video that he needs movement, but at the same time, he's also working on writing. And sometimes children, when they get anxious or when they are facing with a lot of challenges, they need to soothe themselves, right? They need to regulate themselves. So instead of him moving around, standing, or walking around and abandoning the activity, he already had that chance to rock or move his body in a more appropriate way. Thus, it was very effective for him. Some children as well, when you find that, yes, Ms. Paula told us that we can use an upright board, whiteboard or blackboard, or we can also post the paper on the wall, but the child is just walking away from the activity. We can just use a small stool. The child on the left side had the idea that, okay, this is my space. I shouldn't be moving out of this space while I'm engaging in handwriting. You would also see here on the left side, I used double lines for this girl. She already moved past the blocks or boxes for handwriting. So it's now double lines that I'm introducing to her that is more similar to what is being utilized at school. Some schools, I understand, are using 4 lines. Some schools are using blue, red, blue. So it is a good way for them to be prepared for that. Sometimes it's quite challenging for them to sit on the chair, but working on the mat while having this small table or while in kneeling position will also help improve their posture. Then, as a reflection of that, their attention will also be improving. Thus, they are more participative of the tasks at hand. Some of the fidget toys that I was talking about, this one is the therapy with different colors. The blue one next to black would then be the strongest. The ones that are on the low scale would then be very soft in consistency. So it's very good for strengthening, for tactile input as well. Some oral motor sensory toys for kids, chewy tube, TheraTube as well, that they can bite on instead of them biting on their shirt, while the occupational therapist is working on their sense of touch, the automotor function, as well as their speech therapist as well. Some fidget toys, I have had worked with LSAs whereby they have like a fanny pack. They have fidget toys inside that they give to their students in between classes. So this child, because the child needs a lot of activities or the brain needs to be very busy when he's outside, there's automatically a toy that she can give him. And at the same time, it's also a good way to redirect children who are having behavior at school or having maladaptive responses or maladaptive behavior. It's a good way to redirect them. Oh, look, I have this timer with a red color. Oh, I have this one. Look, it's quite squishy. Might as well try it. And the child forgot that he's having a tantrum. He's already playing with the toy, you know? And then here, some kids would also be recommended with weighted vests. I'm not promoting any brand. That's why I kind of included a variety of pictures. Some of the sensory rooms that I've gone to, they have provision for darker spaces. If fiber optic lights or bubble lamp may not be available, this is just a ball, and I just use the torch of my phone to create some form of light. So some children, they need to regulate, they need dimmer lights, and then at the same time, there's just some small or little forms of light that they can be playing with. Here, it's relevant for children who are making a lot of sounds. This boy is humming during classes. Even if he's writing, he's cooperating, participating. Sometimes, it could be disturbing other students as well. The Z vibe here in the picture, I'm applying it onto the face, and at the same time, around. If it's not available, oh, by the way, I'm also using it on the spine. Once again, this boy has goals for bowel and bladder management. You just need to double check with the therapist. For some children with seizure or epilepsy, we may not be recommending the use of vibration at that point. So it's always best to check precautions. I'm also applying it on the hand to bring more awareness on the hand of the child. Once again, we're working on this. In here, if it's not available, you are the best toy for the child. You're the best equipment. So just massage on the face, on the forehead, around the eyes, on the cheek,
And around 4,
around the mouth. And if you notice, I was applying deep pressure input for the child instead of light touch, because remember, deep pressure input would then be calming, light touch would be alerting. Once again, deep pressure input would be calming, light touch would be alerting. That's why some children, if you just touch them all of a sudden, it's as if they would avoid you or they would drop that specific part because their brain sense that it's danger. It's as if there's a cockroach on your leg. How would you react? So it's the same way on how to do that. And at the same time, before we place anything on the mouth of the child, I would recommend for therapists, for LSAs, to provide input on the body first. Body, and then the head, the forehead, before you go inside the mouth. There are also LSAs who are responsible for feeding in the classroom. So these are also very good ideas for them. And remember the weighted spoon that I showed in the earlier video. Now, for children who are in higher grades or higher classes, sometimes just changing the routine, this is also one of the suggestions that I provided through an IEP. The teacher told me, the class advisor told me that they noticed when difficult classes or subjects were towards the end of the day, the child is having a hard time to do it. Meanwhile, if it's already provided first thing in the morning, it's as if the child already accomplished it and is calm the entire day. So working with, and I think Senkos would be more responsible for this one and the class advisor, putting a child on a class or meanwhile changing the schedule for that specific class where the child is, we may be able to get better responses for them and make them more regulated throughout the day while they are still trying to overcome their own challenges. Using a visual schedule will also work with a lot of children because it's setting their expectations. Some kids, it will work. You just tell them, oh, let's do Arabic, English, and then home time. Meanwhile, for some children who are more of like visual learner or having a hard time for auditory processing, showing them pictures will help them appreciate more what's coming next. They're preparing themselves and they're being able to regulate more. For some children as well. In here, you would see on the video, we're working on her ability to perform better breathing patterns because when she becomes anxious, she tenses herself, her muscles become tight, and at the same time, it's as if she forgets how to breathe. So this is a very good way on how to do some breathing exercises. It's just water bottle with soap. Once again, this is for a girl who's already understanding that she's not supposed to drink the mixture, the concoction that we have here. Brain breaks activity here. It's like rolling some dice, the number of times that a child has to do it. And it's like a bingo activity for this girl. She can read, she's being able to understand and comprehend. And I understand that there are situations whereby you feel that the child is very high functioning. It's as if the child understands concepts and things. Why is it very difficult for them to be regulated in the classroom? Why do they keep on standing up, or they leave the class, they go to the playground or another section on their own, you know? So we're also working on those children to build their capacity for self-regulation, self-organization as well. And it's as if they are the ones controlling it because they have the choice. Meanwhile, the brain breaks activities or the contents are actually the ones that were pre-created. You know that these are the ones that will make the child more calm, more organized, and better focused. Here are some of the activities as well, such as animal walks or stationary positions that a child can hold. We call it exercises, but this is quite difficult different from the PE exercises, whereby these are just static poses and positions that we are utilizing. Here, once again, for higher functioning children, they can follow the drawings already. On the left side, this is alphabet animal poses. And then here, these are some of the things that we can utilize for children to make them feel more calm and at peace and regulated as breaks in the classroom or during transition time. Here, naming 5 things from these following categories. It's a good way for them to get distracted from a certain feeling that they are having. For example, I had a client in the classroom. She gets so upset when her peers are not following the instructions of the teacher, or when the tables are crooked. So the LSA or the social worker is kind of deviating that conversation from something that she's perseverating with to something that she's also interested, and at the same time will work on her sense of regulation, tracing around the entire hand. It's as if we can actually do it all together, and then switch hands and then do it again. And then as you go up, you breathe, go down, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So these are activities that you can be providing at the back of the room, or if the child is just in a corner or almost on the verge of having a meltdown. You know, we don't want that crisis. We can avoid it. Squeezing the hands, letting it go, open and then close as well. Now, this is the response to intervention model. There is one question in there: how can we integrate this to classroom, or how can we be integrating them to the regular routine of the child? Going back to everything that I have said, we can then categorize them through this another pyramid. Miss Paula likes triangles. So here you would see that there is tier 1 or general core instruction, tier 2 targeted interventions, and tier 3 intensive interventions. So there are strategies that can be done with children on a tier 3 level. These are the ones that we are creating just for them, just like the fidget toys that I mentioned, the massage that we are providing for them. Some of the clients or the students that we are attending in the classroom, they also have pull-out time, or they have scheduled to be in a sensory room. That's when you can implement the targeted intervention or the intensive ones through the tier 3. Meanwhile, in the tier 2 level, it's when the body system is there. You know, there are specific peers that will be paired with the child during playtime, during circle time, who will be responsible for the child's social interaction or the child to gather input as well, but in a group setting. This is quite similar to when we have smaller groups or focus group, whereby one teacher or teacher assistant will be there and kind of repeat some concepts or go in depth with some concepts that we are teaching in the class. So it's also quite similar for that. Meanwhile, here in tier 1 or universal interventions, this can be implemented in all settings for all students. So for example, there's a client of mine, the teacher is aware that she is undergoing therapy and she has needs. So during PE time, not only that they focus on sports, what can the child do that will give her a lot of confidence as well? Animal walks. So they're also including animal walks, walking like a bear, walking like a dog, like a cat, from one side of the court to the other, that everybody in the class will be able to participate in. So my student, she felt very happy that she's now doing things the same way on how other kids are doing as well. So these are the ways on how we can subcategorize the strategies and the support that were provided throughout this webinar, and the things that you have in your mind as you think of setting the foundation and understanding the basis of why these things are challenging, why these things are quite difficult, and giving yourself the capacity to understand better your children and to have more confidence as well as you implement in your practice. Here, for those who are staying with us, it could be a very simple activity that we can have. For example, think of issues and challenges, individualized intervention, targeted group, and universal approach. Issues and challenges. A child is not sitting in the classroom, or a child is very fidgety. What could be an individualized intervention? So some of them we can recommend, let's say, based on the videos that we had earlier. Oh, individualized intervention, they could be climbing up and down the stairs while doing so. Or they could be in a sensory room, they're bouncing on a ball, or the shawarma that I showed you, or the ring around the rosy. Targeted group or small group, there would be 5 children who will then be engaging in movement-based activities at the back of the room. Or 5 of them would be engaged in, let's say, circle time with action songs and a lot of movements. Universal approach, it could be the entire class who will then have a movement break. Or instead of them sitting on a chair, they would be on the carpet, just for us to be able to wake up or to provide input for children. So you can use this way of thinking or this illustration when you create specific programs for your students, particularly those LSAs who are having a lot of ideas, but they don't know how to implement them. Or for those who are just starting in their LSA journey and their inclusion journey, whereby they're coming from a very basic understanding of academics, but not necessarily for special needs children. I understand our group, our audience is quite dynamic and varied. Some could be repetitive for you. Meanwhile, it could be something that is very new for others. And I really appreciate your participation in our webinar. I hope you don't feel that we're quite hurrying it up. I wanted to place a lot of information in here, meanwhile, while keeping it in an hour. I know I kind of moved past the hour, but there will be recordings if you want to review them as well. And once again, we can send me or Dr. Catherine a message. I think I'll just send you the information, more information regarding handwriting. And then at the same time, you can also drop a DM in my Instagram, OT with Paula. I am now brave to create a web page, not a web page, a social media for
Yeah.
what I'm doing. I'm still quite shy and uncomfortable being in front of the screen, so bear with me. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Paula. This has been probably one of the most practically informative sessions we've had. I've put Paula's Instagram on the chat. So guys, please follow and check out everything she's got. We'll post the recording in the next couple of days so you can go back and see step by step any of these many tools that she shared with us today. And hopefully we can get them all implemented in sessions over the coming weeks and see the impact we can have on kids, because these are so useful and so easy to apply once they're explained properly. You've been amazing, Paula, and I hope we can have you again in the next few months to maybe look at more and more of your practical tips and tools. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and please stay safe. Join us next month on the first Monday of the month for our next forum. And take care. Have a lovely evening and Ramadan Kareem, everyone. Ma salama. Bye-bye. Thank you, Paula. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Catherine, for hosting this. Have a great and safe evening and the rest of the week for us.